हाँ टेस्ट करा दो. हेलो चेक हेलो. टक 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 ठीक है ठीक है ठीक है. ऑफ कर दो सारे. ऑफ करना है. हाँ.
I request the people at the back to kindly come forward. We'll be starting with the program in a very short while. People at the back may join us here in the front seats. We are now starting with the program. I request all of you to be kindly seated. Our chief guest and the other esteemed dignitaries who will be gracing the dais are already there. kindly rise. Our honorable guests are entering the auditorium. Namaskar, a very good afternoon to all of you. I, on behalf of the Juvenile Justice Committee of the Supreme Court of India, welcome you all to the closing ceremony of the two-day National Annual Stakeholders Consultation on protecting the rights of children living with disability, with special focus on children in conflict with law and children in need of care and protection and the intersectionality of disabilities. I extend my heartfelt welcome to Honorable Mrs. Justice B.V. Nagaratna, Chairperson, Juvenile Justice Committee, Supreme Court of India, Ms. Soledad Herrero, Chief of Child Protection, UNICEF, Shri Rajesh Agarwal, IAS, Secretary, Department of Empowerment of Persons with Disabilities, Government of India, and Mr. Anil Malik, IAS, Secretary, Ministry of Women and Child Development, Government of India. I also extend a warm welcome to the other distinguished invitees and dignitaries who are here in attendance today. Your gracious presence here adds immense value to this momentous occasion. Before proceeding ahead, may I request Ms. Himani Sharad, Member Secretary, JJC, Supreme Court of India, to present a token of gratitude to Mr. Rajesh Agarwal, Secretary, Department of Empowerment of Persons with Disabilities. May I now request Shri Ravi Shanti Bhushan ji, Assistant Registrar, Juvenile Justice Committee, Supreme Court of India, to present a token of gratitude to Mr. Anil Malik, Secretary, Ministry of Women and Child Development. May I again request Shri Ravi Shanti Bhushan, Assistant Registrar, JJC, to present a token of gratitude to Ms. Soledad Herrero, Chief of Child Protection, UNICEF. May I now request Ms. Himani Sarad, Member Secretary, Juvenile Justice Committee, to present a token of respect to Honorable Mrs. Justice B.V. Nagaratna, Chairperson, Juvenile Justice Committee, Supreme Court of India. Today, as we gather for this closing ceremony, we stand on the threshold of new beginnings. This consultation has served as a platform for meaningful dialogue, insightful discussions, and the exchange of groundbreaking ideas, all revolving around the ways to further strengthen and reform our justice system for a better and brighter tomorrow for children living with different forms of disabilities. During the last 2 days, we have been reminded of the profound importance of treating every child, regardless of their disabilities, with compassion, empathy, and understanding. From keynote speeches that have left us in awe to interactive sessions that have sparked innovative thinking, this consultation has been nothing short of a source of enlightenment and hope. It is on this note that I call upon Ms. Soledad Herrero, Chief of Child Protection, UNICEF, to kindly address this august gathering.
Namaskaram. Honorable Ms. Justice Nagaranna, Chairperson, Juvenile Justice Committee, Supreme Court of India. Rajesh Argangwal, Secretary, Ministry of Social Justice and Empowerment. Mr. Anil Malik, Secretary, Ministry of Women and Child Development. Secretary General and Registrars of Supreme Court of India. Esteemed justices from High Court, from Juvenile Justice Committees, POCSO committees, representatives from judiciary, from the government, academic institutions, civil society organizations, people of persons with disabilities, esteemed colleagues from UNICEF. I am truly honored today to be with the leadership of the judiciary as well as the executive in the dais and in front of all the duty bearers of the nation with responsibilities on advancing the child protection agenda in India. My deep gratitude, of course, stands first for the Justice Chandrachud, Chief Justice of India, for having graced this event with his presence, and to Honorable Justice Nagaranna for truly leading this national effort with the support of Honorable Justice Pariwala. The role of the Supreme Court and the High Courts in providing oversight as well as convening policy dialogue to advance the rights of the children in the nation is truly a global example that UNICEF has the privilege to accompany and support for nearly a decade. UNICEF would like to extend its appreciation to the two ministries on the dais, Ministry of Women and Child Development and Ministry of Social Justice, for spearheading national efforts to advance the rights of children, of women, of people with disabilities, and other marginalized sectors of society. But perhaps my most special appreciation extends to the organizations and people with disabilities that have accompanied us in the last 2 days, as well as the children that lend their voices to this small but nevertheless powerful document, Invisible No More, which is a reminder and a testimony that there is still a long journey for us to walk, not for you, but with you. In October 27, India ratified the first human rights treaty of the 21st century. India joined a global movement, and as someone reminded us earlier, a global awakening that recognized that disabilities are part of the human diversity, that is a human rights imperative and not a domestic affair that needs to be treated with urgency and determination. With this in mind, I had the very difficult task of offering some summary and conclusions of not only the national consultation, but also the entire process that informed these 2 days that was truly empowered, but very rich deliberation processes and state consultations that the High Courts led through the nation. I think being in the Supreme Court is fair to say that I will not be able to make justice to all the conversations, discussions, and points that have been raised. Nevertheless, I'll try to offer a few recommendations that are to be subscribed, as it couldn't be otherwise, to 4 basic human rights. First, children with disabilities have the right to live a dignified life, have the right for participation. We have learned that children with disabilities are a very diverse group, and we should understand their realities and provide them opportunities for expression, for meaningful participation. So let's start this conversation and this concluding phase of the consultation by committing ourselves to ensuring that the views and perspectives of children and people with disabilities are central to shaping policies and actions. Second, children with disability also have the right to grow in a safe and nurturing family environment. keeping children in families is not only the right thing to do, is not only what the Convention of the Rights of the Child and national legislations dictate, it is also almost the only realistic way in which we can level the playing field. But for families to support, they first have to be supported. And of course, thanks to the experiences shared, we've also realized that naturally, the families of children with disabilities had to spend more time, had to spend more investment, more resources, and therefore, they are under higher distress. I should probably add here that naturally also, and as some of the sessions reflected, it is really the mothers, the female households members that bear the brunt of the caring in the absence of other care arrangements available. In short, families of children with disabilities need to be supported across the continuum of prevention, of detection, of diagnosis, and early intervention. Services should encompass a wide range of areas that should include, at the very minimum, effective counseling and social protection schemes that should cover a wide range of issues, including income security, disability-affected cost, social empowerment schemes. This will not only improve the self-efficacy and capacity of the families to address effectively some of the challenges of children with disabilities, but it will ensure that the principle of avoidance of family separation is fully realized. On that, the Section 9 of the Rights of People with Disabilities states very clearly, and I will quote, "No child with a disability shall be separated from the parents due to disability. If the parents are unable to care for the child, the court must place the child with close relatives within the community and in a family setting." We should acknowledge the great progress that MWCD has advanced in this regard, with a mentioning of the increasing number of adoption of children with disabilities, ongoing efforts under Mission Vatsalya to increase family-based alternative care. But much more needs to be done to effectively make sure that children with disabilities are placed in foster care, in sponsorship, in kinship care, and other models of family-based care models. Thanks to the leadership of the Departments of Women and Child Development, many of the states that are here today have developed and advanced comprehensive deinstitutionalization plans. This with a strong focus on the role that individual care plans can play, can really move the needle in this regard. Third right to have access to basic but also inclusive services. The deliberations emphasize that convergence, multisectorial action should be at the core of this endeavor if we want to avoid fragmentation and silos. The role of community-based rehabilitation services was also emphasized if we really want to make a difference in the reality of the life of a child with disabilities. The call to enhance data collection was very clear, and I will dare to use the words of Chief Justice of India. How can we address a problem that we don't even recognize? And I will dare to add, a problem that we cannot even measure. In addition to data collection, we need to emphasize a twin approach in terms of service delivery as well as social workforce enhancement. It's important to make sure that disability is included and mainstream, and a lot of emphasis was put in inclusive education, but we need to recognize that there should be also targeted, specialized interventions, services, and workforce that is able to address the specific barriers that children with disability face. The twin approach will be able to make a difference and enhance the early identification and diagnosis that was so strongly emphasized, considering, as we learned, that disabilities are many times preventable, and its secondary impacts are also very likely to be significantly mitigated, especially through early childhood interventions. Now, when we come to inclusive services, and because of the domain of the consultation and the stakeholders here present, I will make a specific reference to the justice system. And courtesy of Justice Bhattacharya, I will, of course, borrow the acronym that emanates, and I hope the audience will help me to remember the significance of FRISPA. Fast track, restoration, information, sensitization, protection, and awareness. But I do want to highlight that it is not only about child-friendly procedures and restoration systems, which are very important, but we need to recognize, and the deliberations highlighted, that disability is a dimension that can be invisible in the justice system, contributing to their re-victimization. For that matter, the justice system should have counseling and psychiatric services attached, equipped to identify disabilities, particularly cognitive and emotional, which should be factored when establishing criminal responsibility. I also want to bring attention that, because we are talking about the intersection of two vulnerabilities, childhood and disability, the Committee of the Rights of the Child, in a General Comment 9, stipulates, goes one step further and actually recommends that children with disabilities in contact with the law should be dealt as much as possible without resorting to formal legal procedures, that no matter how friendly they are converted, they will always have a strong impact on the children and should not be placed in detention centers. The fourth right is, of course, the right to live a life without discrimination. For that to be effective, removing barriers should be the goalpost that we are all targeted. We have learned in the consultation that disability is the intersection of vulnerability together with a barrier. What it means is that if we address the barrier, we override the vulnerability. These barriers, as we have learned, can be related to lack of inclusive information, to infrastructure, to assistive technology, which for me has been a personal learning in this process, that assistive devices and technology are literally a lifeline for independent life and for normalcy. There was a specific recommendation to look at the streamlining of the certification processes, which, supported by clear referral pathways, can also be an effective entry point for children to have access to a wide range of services. Now, to materialize the right not to be discriminated, we have also reflected upon the fact that the most significant barrier that we are facing relates to the negative cultural practices and beliefs that underpin discrimination and stigma. Stigma is particularly relevant when it comes to child protection because stigma manifests in the form of violence, in the form of institutionalization, in the form of neglect. The global data is sobering. We've learned that children with disabilities are twice as likely to experience violence and 17 times more likely to experience institutionalization. To address this, it's essential to make the invisible visible, to generate awareness, to generate an awakening through truly concerted, multifaceted set of actions, which should include, among others, mass awareness, community dialogue, inclusion of disability awareness in the school curricula, but much more that really tackles social behavior change and subsequent change in mindsets. Ultimately, the extent to which children with disabilities can lead fulfilled lives will depend on the society's capacity to embrace diversity as part of the human, individual, and social experience. Now, as I conclude these conclusion remarks, I want to emphasize that intentions will not suffice when we come to this complex agenda that requires many departments and stakeholders to come together. UNICEF really welcomes the exercises that have been done at the state level, and particularly the resolutions to carry on concrete action plans, and UNICEF will be very much on standby to support a similar endeavor at the national level. As we leave this honorable house, let's all commit to ensure that the disability of a child will not define her or his path. Children with disabilities don't need easy, they just need possible. So let's work together so that their aspirations stay within their reach. So I will conclude by saying this: children with disabilities have rights. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am, for sharing your reflections on the deliberations from yesterday and today and showing us the way forward. You have brought some very refreshing and innovative ideas to the table, giving each one of us a lot to ponder over as we leave these portals today. On this note, I would now like to call upon Mr. Anil Malik, Secretary, Ministry of Women and Child Development, Government of India, to kindly address this august gathering.
Honorable Justice, Madam Justice B.V. Nagratna ji, Chairperson, Juvenile Justice Committee and Judge, Supreme Court of India, Honorable Judges, Supreme Court of India, Honorable Chief Justice and Justices and Honorable Judges of High Courts and members of JJ Committees and POCSO Committees, Ms. Soledad Herrero, Chief of Child Protection, UNICEF India, my colleague Rajesh Agrawal ji, Secretary, Government of India, and my esteemed colleagues from different states and other departments of Government of India, distinguished delegates. I am honored to be part of these deliberations, and I thank Madam Justice B.V. Nagratna ji to give this opportunity to my ministry and me. It's a great to know that the Honorable Juvenile Justice Committee has organized this annual stakeholders consultation in association with UNICEF India. This is focused this time on Divyang children and their rights. The Ministry of WCD at the union level and the ministries at the state level have actively participated and contributed in the discussions. Of course, and as it's been a learning and humbling experience for us, because the topic was such. So that has really motivated us to implement the provisions of the law, different laws, JJ Act, POCSO Act, other laws related to children and their care and protection more effectively. We know that families and society at large and communities at large, of course, have to look after the children, but state cannot escape the responsibility at all. State has to be there in all forms and at all times, under all circumstances. No child, as they say, can be left behind. There can be no barrier or discrimination. So this is the motto with which we in Government of India work, and the commitment has been shown by amendments in the JJ Act in 2021, major amendments to streamline the whole law and the processes. Similarly, the amendments in the POCSO law, where different kinds of assaults have been defined very specifically, and in case of aggravated assaults, very severe punishments have been prescribed, procedures have been streamlined. We have now the institution of fast-track courts, which has absolutely got institutionalized under the POCSO and rape laws. It has certainly speeded up the decision-making. More than 214,000 cases have been disposed of in the last 5 years. though the rate of conviction is still not very high, of course. We in Government of India are also thinking of enlarging the scope of the victim compensation scheme under this law. For the JJ Act, right now the local level machinery is decentralized, where the district magistrate, the district collector takes the lead, and he is supposed to head the DCPU as well as the CWC. There has to be an organic link, and with the JJ board, they have to constantly stay in touch. This is how the law and the rules and procedures have been defined. Right now we have these institutions, as we know, across all the districts, virtually all the districts of the country. We have 781 CWCs, 774 JJBs, 762 DCPUs. So practically all of the country is absolutely covered. We have the other institution of child care institutions, where these vulnerable children, especially the Divyang children, if the society and family cannot take care of them, then they stay there for a long time. So right now about 2,500 such CCIs are being supported by union, the central government as well as the state governments. Same number which is not funded, but which is regulated closely by the district administration under the law. But we want to move away from the system of CCIs, in the long term, because for the child to grow in an impersonal and a bureaucratic environment in a CCI is not the best thing that can happen to the child. So we want the child, especially the Divyang child, to be part of the families, communities, neighborhoods, where normal upbringing can really, take care of his needs. So we are expanding the non-institutional care framework big time. Whatever is the demand of the states and the districts, we are fulfilling in case of sponsorship, in case of foster care, in case of adoption. In case of like sponsorship, the numbers have risen about 6 times in the last 3 years. Now more than 171,000 children are under direct state sponsorship schemes, living with families with financial support from the state and central government. Similarly, for the other part, foster care, we have issued foster care guidelines very recently, and in 24 itself. Now many prospective parents are coming up for foster care. Some children have already got foster cared, they have, and this is a route to ultimate adoption. It's a very good route for especially the older children, where generally the adoption levels are not very high. Now, even at present, our guidelines are very clear that wherever there are Divyang children, they need special support in the CCIs. So that has to be provided, equipments have to be provided, special needs, they have to be looked after, and special trainings also have to be provided. This is provided in the guidelines. We have, in the last few meetings with the states, also come to know that some of the states want Divyang exclusive CCIs. We are ready. We will, support and sponsor them. So that if that, I don't know whether that might be a great idea, but if that is the need, we are ready to support. Another initiative about the mental health that Government of India has, I think has been talked about already. Samvad, we call it, support advocacy mental health interventions in vulnerable circumstances and distress, in collaboration with NIMHANS, Bengaluru. So this is for psychosocial training and of the duty holders and stakeholders, where the mental health of children would be then taken care of by these trained people. More than 152,000 duty holders have been trained by this NIMHANS Samvad program, which we are sponsoring. This includes law enforcement agencies officers, judicial officers, protection functionary, child protection functionaries, healthcare professionals, various child-centric training modules. A lot of literature and standard research and advocacy instruments have also been framed under this initiative. We have also tied up with the Mussoorie Academy, National Academy of Administration, LBS-NAA. They are doing courses, specialized courses for government officers on mental health, of children, how to protect children who have some problems. There is this iGOT platform also of Mission Karam Yogi, where government officers are being trained on these topics, More than 16,000 have been trained till now. In next few weeks' time, we are going to launch a revamped portal for Vatsalya mission, where all the present 4 or 5 portals would be integrated. So the Khoya Paya, the Track Child, the Child Protection Services, and the Carings portals all will be merged. And the stakeholders, children included, parents and citizens and duty holders, everybody would be like JJBs, DCPUs, CCIs, SAAs, everybody would be able to have their workplace, fetch the data, work on the data, or send additional data wherever required, so that all the ambiguities and duplications and gaps are removed. Right now there are a lot of gaps, and because the child is in an emergency situation, decisions have to be taken in a coordinated and fast manner. So that right now in some cases is difficult, which we will achieve through this. I would like to talk about the child helpline also. It has been there for a long time, of course, but it was being run in the PPP mode with the support of the government by non-state actors. Now state has fully taken it over across the country. It's got now integrated with 112, the National Emergency Helpline, where huge amount of resources, mobility, manpower is available in case of any emergency. It's also been integrated with 181, the Women Helpline. So now all these 3 helplines talk to each other both ways, voice as well as data. So we feel that there is a network in the country now where you just have to approach the helpline and the help will come. It has to come. Response time has really got reduced. It shall come. There is a log, this is maintained, there is a training of these people who are on this helpline. So it's one of the, I would say, success stories. It's evolved over a period of time, but now we are at a fairly mature stage. I would also like to talk about our adoption portal, Carings, which has streamlined the adoption process. Of course, there are less, I don't know whether some of us know it or not, less than like 2,500 children actually available for adoption. They call it LFA, legally free for adoption. And more than 35,000 prospective adoptive parents. So there's a big queue. And there is a waiting line, there is a waiting list, but it's absolutely transparent. The good thing is that special need children, after the foster care guidelines and after the Carings portal, they are now getting into the adoption. I'd like to give some numbers. In 2022-23, 152 such special, 152 that is, they got adopted. Next year, that is last year, 309. And this year already about 150, it's 149. So I think we are on the right path for these children also. Earlier, generally the foreigners were more interested, Indians were not so much interested. Now Indians also, Indian citizens and NRIs also have started taking interest. We have now a very transparent medical report which is verified by the Chief Medical Officer, and their disability is certified as per the Act. There are 15 kinds of disabilities. So it's fairly streamlined and transparent. The prospective parents know which child they are going to adopt. The Temple of Healing matter in the Honorable Supreme Court, we have received a lot of directions and we are complying, and I am very happy to report here that we are now including 2 more categories of children who would be put into the adoption pool. Earlier, OAS, as we know, those surrendered and orphaned and abandoned children were generally considered for adoption pool. Now 2 more categories, like where no visitation happens, nobody visits the child for a long time, or where the guardians and parents are unfit. So these 5 categories, and we have done the survey, about 15,000 children in the CCIs have been identified, 15,000. So we are going to put them in the foster care and the adoption pool very soon. The CWCs and the district magistrates are being constantly followed and pursued. So we hope that, and we have now the specialized adoption agencies also practically in all districts of the country. After the intervention of the Honorable Court, the numbers they have increased big time in last 1 year. 698 SAAs we have now in 588 districts. So practically the whole country is covered. So we hope that these children and many of them Divyang, they would find homes. So this consultation has been very, very fruitful and eye-opening. For my officers, they have participated here big time. Whole of my division is here since yesterday. I have been here. I compliment Madam Nagratna, Justice Madam Nagratna ji, for giving us the opportunity here. And we are absolutely sure that we in the ministry would absolutely be following the recommendations and implementing them. Of course, otherwise legally also we are bound to follow the law and to implement the regulations. So many congratulations to Madam Justice Nagratna ji and her team, and UNICEF also, and to you also, to all of you also. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir, for sharing your valuable reflections. May I now call upon Mr. Rajesh Agarwal, Secretary, Department of Empowerment of Persons with Disabilities, Government of India, to kindly address this august gathering.
Respected dais and all the honorable dignitaries, I am really grateful to CJI and Justice Nagratna, UNICEF, and the entire team for this wonderful conference. And it has been learning, at least for me and my entire team. I am secretary of this department for about 2 years now. I don't have a lived experience or a family experience of disability, but last 2 years, I have really immersed myself in this sector with the Divyang community, with the achievers, parents, activists, doctors working in this field, and so on. Very broadly, 1/3 disabilities in India are at childbirth, 1/3 are due to old age, and 1/3 are due to adult infections or accidents. Now, for example, diabetic foot, it's leading to a lot of amputations. But whichever way you count, there is gross underestimation in our country. There is stigma of this. During census, families don't declare. Plus, there is a feeling that 40% disability to batana chahiye, because a lot of schemes, especially the pension scheme of the governments, they are tied to this. So people less than 40% disabilities, those actually don't get counted at all. And most important is we have a medical definition in our country compared to functional definition in the West. For example, we all know Eklavya story. जब एकलव्य का अंगूठा चला गया तो हमारी SOP यूज़ करेंगे assessment का तो 10% disability निकलेगी. But we all know functional disability basically killed his whole life. It was functionally very debilitating for his career and other life skills. So due to these factors, we have underestimation of persons with disabilities in the country. But that broad classification, 1/3, 1/3, 1/3, that remains. Now, the most important thing we have been hearing since yesterday is prevention, both prenatal and postnatal. So the medicines, the gene therapy, or in fact, I was talking to Justice, and now adoption is giving way to surrogacy. And probably in future, we will have designer babies, and Divyang community is already asking the question, do the disabled children have the right to be born at all or not? So if in future you can do diagnostics become better, they are early in pregnancy and so on, these questions are going to come up. For example, now prevention, we all know polio is practically gone from the country. You don't see any polio cases. Institutional deliveries, the CP cases, cerebral palsy cases have really come down. But small things like clubfoot, we are still not able to tackle it fully. Every year, 25,000 children with clubfoot, they don't get treated. और अगर बचपन के टाइम पे पैर आपका टेढ़ा है, we all see beggars on the roads जो crawl कर रहे हैं. If at 1 week, 2 week, or 2 months or 4 months, non-surgery, they had got the intervention, costing hardly 2,000 rupees, they would have walked their entire life. So there are so many things which can be prevented. And then Anganwadi workers play a good role. In Odisha, they had an experimentation on this, actually full-scale experimentation. They trained Anganwadi workers. they identified about 50,000 kids, potential disabilities. Then ASHA workers and PHCs came in. So 30,000 kids, they could do early intervention. So this is a good example. Kerala is a good example of BERA testing at birth. So you can immediately catch the deaf child, and we see sign language here. So how many deaf children in the country really know sign language? And here the role of parents also comes up. When the child with disabilities is born, parents go into shock, they don't know what to do. Sometimes they are into denial. For example, I have met a lot of children from my own colleagues in IAS and IPS. एक बच्चा 5 साल का हो गया, they just keep on waiting कि बोलेगा, बोलेगा, बोलेगा. They don't take to a doctor. And at 5 years, the audio-verbal therapy can be quite late, though you can still intervene. So parent help groups are very critical in this, and obviously awareness all around is very important. When I talk to parents of especially the children with intellectual disabilities, they have one question in their mind कि हमारे मरने के बाद बच्चे का क्या होगा. So the national trust primarily exists for that local guardianship certificates, etc. So they still, we are in infancy even today on those aspects. Property rights of children with disabilities, and basically their own uncles and aunties and siblings also sometimes grab their rightful share and don't take care after the parents are gone. So that's an important aspect. In the entire discourse, one thing is very important: ease and dignity of life. So most important obviously is education, education, education. The dignity comes if one is educated and is earning. Except a few children with cognitive impairments, and within that also only a segment of that, others have the potential to really do well in life. If they get, again, to not buzzwords, but real words, equal opportunities and reasonable accommodations. So when we were being taught law in Mussoorie Academy, our law teacher said कि 2 शब्द याद कर लो: प्रिंसिपल ऑफ नेचुरल जस्टिस एंड बैलेंस ऑफ कन्वीनियंस. इस सेक्टर में 2 शब्द हैं: इक्वल अपॉर्चुनिटीज एंड रीजनेबल accommodations. That's all what the Divyang community asks from the society. So in education, again, there's a debate. CGI also hinted at it. The inclusive schools are obviously the best. Special schools should be rare, and sometimes I feel it is like ghettoization. Army has a good way in this. So all the children, only if they are severely cognitive impairments, only they are put into ASHA schools, specialized schools. All other children of Jawans and army officers and civilians in cantonments, they go to regular army schools, and they have very well-trained special educators. And when a child is transferred or the parents are transferred from one location to another, the special educator actually in advance rings up the special educator of the school where the parent is getting transferred. कि इस बच्चे को ये पसंद है, ये नहीं पसंद, इसमें ये potential है. So they have this beautiful system, and children are getting integrated into inclusive schools. And last year, Supreme Court had a very important ruling on having special educators in all the schools. So this has caused a real upheaval in the education sector. People have started, both government schools, private schools, they have started appointing or looking for special educators. And I'm sure when the contempt proceedings start in court, and then it will get further speeded up. So we are on the right track there. Children need to go to, they have a right to go to inclusive schools. Then another aspect is for ease and dignity is assistive technologies. We are really focusing on well-made and made in India, and not too costly products. In assistive technology, 3 words are important: awareness, accessibility, and affordability. So lack of any one can actually deprive people. A company called NeoMotion, along with IIT Madras, they have launched a wheelchair on which you can attach a scooty kind of attachment. And it's a beautiful looking product. And most probably, if you are getting things at your home on e-commerce platforms, probably a delivery boy or delivery girl could have come to your home on a neo-motion wheelchair to deliver that product. Today we have more than 2,000 such boys and girls on wheelchairs appointed by Amazon, Flipkart, Swiggy, Zomato, all of them. So I was in a function at Manesar last month where IOCL was sponsoring 30 such scooty or wheelchairs, and Zomato was giving them the job on the same day. So one lady told me, we asked कि आपको कैसा लग रहा है? One lady said, इस पे बैठ के शर्म नहीं लग रही. That's a wonderful statement. They need a product जिसको use करने में शर्म ना लगे. And me and my entire team, along with more than 500 startups in the country and lot of IITs, etc., we are totally focused on this. कि हम ऐसे product बनाएं, सस्ते भी हों, but जुगाड़ू ना हो, top of the line हो, सुंदर दिखें, user interface easy हो, और जिसको use करने में शर्म ना लगे. That's very important. Next point I would like to cover is about the law. On paper, we have good laws. National Trust Act, RCA Act, RPWD Act. Implementation, sketchy. We recently, 6 months back, compiled a book of more than 100 impactful judgments of Honorable Supreme Court and various high courts. They're really path-breaking judgments in this field. But probably we need to strengthen one aspect. If you see the USA law, the ADA Act, American with Disabilities Act, उस पर फाइन बहुत भयंकर है. फर्स्ट वायोलेशन का फाइन है $75,000, सेकंड का $150,000, एंड दे गो अप. दैट्स वाई छोटे से छोटा रेस्तरां है, ट्रांसपोर्ट है, टैक्सी है, एनी पब्लिक बिल्डिंग, ट्रांसपोर्ट, वेबसाइट, दे आर एक्सेसिबल. In India, we have the nudge thing. We are appealing to the good aspects of humanity, कि ये करना चाहिए, but we are not finding enough. The punishment has to be swift and severe, तभी impact आता है उस चीज़ का. So that's where sort of we need to work on, and probably the legislation has to get strengthened there. Then I see a lot of my colleagues who are working as SCPDs here, SCPDs in the state. So I am also having additional charge of CCPD for last 1 year. So there is a debate on this. Is it a toothless body? If you can only recommend and not really make people obey your orders, कुछ फ़ायदा भी है क्या? But इसमें जो हमारा experience रहा है, and we have also actually compiled a booklet of good judgments of SCPDs and CCPDs, and then we were afraid to put an extra column कि उसका compliance हुआ कि नहीं हुआ. So, but उसमें देखिए हमारा एक्सपीरियंस रहा है एज SCPD एंड CCPDs कि जैसे हम नोटिस देते हैं और बताते हैं सामने वाले को कि यार ये एक्ट है, तो उसमें से 1/3 लोग तो अपने आप ही कह देते हैं हमें पता नहीं था, सॉरी, हम कर देते हैं ऐसा, तो कंप्लायंस अपने आप हो जाता है. बाकी कुछ चीज़ों का वी हैव टू रियली वर्क हार्ड, कोलैबोरेट एंड ऑल दैट. So I am having 2 good suo motu cases which are having actually good impact. One is on digital accessibility. So against about 600 government websites and apps and private websites and apps. And we have taken top 20 footfall websites and apps like Book My Show, Make My Trip, railway website, income tax website, mutual funds websites, etc. So which the Divyang community really uses. And we are working very collaboratively in that suo motu hearing. And it's having an impact, real impact. Whether it's Ola, Bolt, Taxi, is the app usable by the visually impaired person and so on. And second is a suo motu case against all state governments and WCD departments of all states and education department. I found that in inclusive schools, Sarva Shiksha Abhiyan funding is there. Kids are getting midday meal scheme, uniforms, assistive devices. But special schools, the education departments were saying, they are not our babies. वो तो social welfare चलाता है, हमारी ये स्कीमों का लाभ नहीं मिलेगा. So when I started this, immediately the Education Department, Government of India issued a clarification कि सर्व शिक्षा अभियान special school के बच्चों को भी मिलेगा, and states in last 3 months only they have started reporting compliance. So I will be very happy if 2 lakh kids benefit by this. So even though I know I am a toothless tiger, but this is helping. So as long as people are listening, collaborating, it's very good. So 2-3 small points from my side more. So real empowerment comes from political empowerment also. For SC/ST community, we have the reservations in political system also, so and also in budgets, which sort of Divyang community is scattered, numbers are low, plus within that, it is 21 disabilities. Then within locomotor disability, there are 20 kind of further sub-disabilities. So a sort of cohesive big voice is not there of the Divyang community. So I keep on nudging them. कि आप visibility बढ़ाइए. For example, now Para-Olympians have done the country proud, visibility है, Prime Minister साहब भी मिलते हैं और वो सब है. Academia में numbers are going up. In, for example, Delhi University, HOD of English department is a blind person. And there are so many, I have met more than 600 visually impaired professors of universities across the country. So in jobs, private and sarkari jobs, people have to be at higher and higher positions. This position is changing in last 15 years, so people have started getting promoted to higher and higher positions. So visibility is getting more. And when our infrastructure becomes more disabled friendly, when parents become more aware and the stigma goes down, the Divyang community will become more visible all around. And that's when the real empowerment will come. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, sir, for reminding us about the importance of early intervention, which can go a long way in preventing lifelong disabilities. Hearing you, we realize the importance of assistive technologies, which are the most potent tools of empowerment. Your words will continue to resonate with us. May I now have the privilege of requesting Honorable Mrs. Justice B.V. Nagaratna to kindly address this illustrious gathering. Please, my leadership.
Namaskar and good afternoon to everybody. I'm conscious of the fact that I am the last speaker, but I have the pleasant duty of giving the closing remarks of this consultation. My distinguished colleagues, Justices Prasanna Varle and Koteshwar Singh of the Supreme Court of India, Honorable Chairpersons and members of the Juvenile Justice Committees and POCSO Committees of the High Courts, Sri Rajesh Agarwal, IAS, Secretary, Ministry of Social Justice and Chief Disabilities Commissioner, Government of India, Sri Anil Malik, IAS, Secretary, Ministry of Women and Child Development, Government of India, Ms. Soledad Herrero, Chief of Child Protection, UNICEF, Secretaries and officers from various ministries, Government of India and state governments, Member Secretaries, conveners of Juvenile Justice Committees of the High Courts, representatives of the NCPCR and State Commission for Protection of Child Rights, disability commissioners from the states, representatives of Team UNICEF in India, Mr. Gopal Mitra, UNICEF Global Head on Disability and Development, experts and panelists who have enlightened us during the 2 days, Secretary General and Registrars of the Supreme Court of India, distinguished invitees, members from the media, ladies and gentlemen. As I told you, I have the pleasant duty of delivering the closing address this afternoon after a 2-day enriching 9th round of the National Annual Stakeholders Consultation on Child Protection, which is coming to a close on a promising and reassuring note. The broad theme of our consultation is protecting the rights of children living with disability, focus on CiCL and CNCP, and intersectionality of disabilities. The Nobel Prize-winning diplomat and former Secretary General of the United Nations, Mr. Kofi Annan, said, and I quote, "There is no trust more sacred than the one the world holds with children. There is no duty more important than ensuring that their rights are respected, that their welfare is protected, that their lives are free from fear and want, and that they can grow up in peace." Unquote. Articulated in an admirable prose, his vision is undeniably shared by everyone present here today. I applaud this shared commitment and for giving force to the aforesaid words for the welfare of children living with disabilities, who are stated to be more in rural India than in the urban areas. If I may dilate, our sacred trust with children is bound to be a thread of responsibility that extends to every succeeding generation. The goal of every successive round of National Annual Stakeholders Consultation has been to reimagine justice and society such that our succeeding generations inherit a view of moral and ethical values which fosters greater accessibility and encourages representation all round. The manifestation of consultative growth and goals envisioned over the last 2 days calls for unflinching commitment to realizing rights and justice for children living with disabilities. I consider it a privilege to observe that through a blend of evidence-based legal analysis and experimental sharing, participants have attempted to inch towards a community where a child is free from the invisible shackles of society and where children living with disabilities are emboldened to interact with the state. This vision is rooted in the need for a juvenile justice system that supports the pro-social development of children and youth. Rights of children living with disabilities must be given the widest possible realization, both in theory as well as in practice. The time is now to ensure that children living with disabilities are provided with the complete scope of affirmative action and positive assistance to ensure that they can be constructive citizens. This vision is in consonance with the essence of subclause 2.3 of Article 8 of the Convention on Rights of Persons with Disabilities, which provides that the state parties must undertake to adopt effective and immediate measures to promote recognition of the skills, merits, and abilities of persons with disabilities. Throughout and beyond this consultation, our focus is on strengthening the juvenile justice system by facilitating rehabilitation of children within the scope of the Act. An equally crucial area of focus has been to understand and contribute to the design of a social support structure that branches from the roots of parental support to a skilled child protection cadre. These safeguards are essential, particularly having acknowledged that indisputably there is a chasm between the ideals of the Juvenile Justice Act 2015 and their implementation. I implore all gathered here to endure towards cultivating an environment that enables children living with disabilities the space to enjoy their childhood and develop with dignity. I have no hesitation in stating that substantively diverse and truly enriching discussions have made the 9th round of our consultation a meaningful one. On that note, I am indebted to Honorable the Chief Justice of India, Dr. D.Y. Chandrachud, for setting an instructive direction for the consultation with his edifying inaugural address and releasing the handbook concerning persons with disabilities. His erudite and humanist approach to securing the best interest of children is a guiding light for all present and also underlines the spirit of this consultation. I must acknowledge the team which has prepared the handbook and particularly to Mr. Vasu. I thank the distinguished invitees, including Honorable Minister for Women and Child Development, Srimati Annapurna Devi, Ms. Cynthia McCaffrey, Country Representative, UNICEF India, Sri Rajesh Agarwal, Chief Disabilities Commissioner, and Sri Anil Malik, IAS, Secretary, Ministry of Women and Children, for their commitment to strive towards the cherished goal of accessible justice for children living with disabilities. I am in gratitude to my colleagues from the Supreme Court of India for being a part of this consultation, especially my brother Justice Pardiwala. On behalf of the Juvenile Justice Committee, Supreme Court of India, I am grateful to the Honorable Justices of the Juvenile Justice Committee, the chairpersons of both the committees, and I am grateful that their presence from all over India has been really meaningful for this session. for leading an active participation in the deliberations and directing our efforts towards reinforcing the intent and implementation of the JJ Act. I express my gratitude to judges who shared the 4 technical sessions and participated on different themes such as parental perception on children with disabilities, global instruments, human rights framework and global data on children with disabilities, family-based alternative care services and social support for children with disabilities, inclusive education and technology-enabled assistive services, intersectionality, etc. This consultation owes its success to their astute knowledge and earned expertise on topics of intergenerational importance. I express my gratitude to distinguished panelists and every member of this consultation for avidly participating in substantive and incisive deliberations. Our broadened horizons of uncertainties and vulnerabilities faced by the juvenile justice system would not have been possible without your perceptiveness and interdisciplinary knowledge sharing. Over the course of the last 2 days, there has been an unanimous admiration of India's unwavering national commitment towards the rights of persons with disabilities and especially children with disabilities. This unflinching national resolve has been evidenced in the large part of India's ratification of the UNRDP and UNCRC and the comprehensive, well-intentioned legislative framework in India. The first technical session's exposition on the development of global instruments and national legislation was an eye-opener for 2 reasons. Firstly, the discourse encapsulated the intent of global instruments and merits of India's legislative framework. Secondly, it showed that a top-down approach is unlikely to lead to meaningful outcomes unless we make concerted efforts to recognize that while disability is an omnibus term, the experiences it shadows are unique in their own right and call for focused and targeted policy making. Last year, we started collecting disaggregated data. It is now up to us to not miss the signal for the noise and provide assistance that emboldens supported decision making, not substituted decision making. As panelists rightly stated, the first step in that direction would be to come together across sectors and ministries. I was elated to know that Mission Vatsalya takes steam from the convergence of 14 ministries. It is my sincere hope that the legislative intent of leveraging technology will soon result in an exclusive and dedicated 24/7 child helpline led by a dedicated sensitization and training of frontline workers exclusively for children with disabilities, not only at the Government of India level, but in each state. It was asked yesterday by a member of the audience that how could we implement rapidly these salient steps and goals we so talk of. This is one of the ways in which we could. Honorable the Chief Justice of India beautifully reflected on the directed conversation on the need to create an inclusive environment. The answer is simple. Children living with disabilities are first and foremost children. They have the right to enjoy and consume media. They have a right to safety and reside in a family environment. They have a right to develop in a family environment. Like all children do, they have a right to make mistakes and grow from them. They have a right to be constructive and accountable citizens in the community. I implore to this audience to carry this message. Our parochial view that for long sought to patently brush under the carpet the success and failure of persons living with disabilities and to treat them as a fad for our self-aggrandizement must now stop. Even if a person living with disability finds themselves short of their goals, it is our responsibility to stand as a pillar of support and not use their disability as a tool for consolation to settle for less. To do so would be to view them as less than any other citizen. To borrow from Justice Rekha Palli, as she mentioned yesterday, persons with disabilities deserve to be just seen as another normal person. I would also like to thank the secretaries and other officers of different governments, departments, both state and central, such as the Department of Women and Child Development, Department of Social Welfare, Department of Education and Legal Affairs, who joined us and shared their experiences, thoughts, and ideas. I would like to thank representatives of law schools, representatives of different NGOs and civil society organizations who joined us, either as panelists or as participants. We are especially duty-bound to appreciate the resource persons whose absorbing presentations and engaging discussions took us to unexplored questions and have reinforced our spirit to take tangible steps. This round of the national consultation was unique for embracing novel perspectives from the experience of legal practitioners on the impact that representation and social support can have on children living with disabilities. I thank advocates Rahul Bajaj and Sara Sani for bringing to the fore their experiences. I would like to profusely thank Team UNICEF India for their unflinching commitment towards children and the 9th round of National Annual Stakeholders Consultation. It behoves me to acknowledge and appreciate the creativity and efforts of the UNICEF and the production team, which tirelessly worked on producing the documentary film and the mission statement for inclusion by children with disabilities titled Invisible No More. I am also grateful to the Secretary General and Registrars of the Supreme Court of India, officers and staff of the registry, and my own secretariat led by Dr. Mukesh Nasa, without whose painstaking attention to detail, immeasurable effort, and diligent planning, this consultative forum would not have transpired. I must place on record my sincere appreciation and thanks to Srimati Himani Sharat and Sri Ravi Shanti Bhushan, conveners of the Juvenile Justice Committee, Supreme Court of India, for their unparalleled efforts dedicated to planning and hosting this consultation. A special thanks to all the compeers, sign language interpreters, and volunteers who have selflessly offered their time and energy in ensuring the seamless execution of this event, and particularly ensuring that we were all on time for our sessions. Their enthusiasm, hard work, and dedication have not gone unnoticed, and we are incredibly grateful for their contributions. I would also be remiss if I do not thank the members of the media, for it is they who spread awareness about the developments in child rights jurisprudence. They must be lauded for their relentless efforts on this front and for their coverage of this consultation through print, electronic, and digital media. I thank each one of you for traveling from all over India and converging for this consultation. Many thanks to all those present here whom I may not have referred to in particular. I once again appeal to all to contribute in whatever manner possible towards ensuring the safety and progress of every child in the country. I exhort every one of you to take a pledge to help and assist children who are in need of care and protection or who are in conflict with law. The way ahead is not to assume that we can be the sole guardians of the experience and voices of children living with disabilities, but to provide an unconditional and accommodating platform that allows them to elevate themselves, their individual and shared experiences on an equal basis with other children. Beyond a virtue, this is also a duty spelled out in Clause 3 of Article 7 of the Convention on Rights of Persons with Disabilities, which requires parties to ensure that children with disabilities have the right to express their views freely on all matters affecting them, their views being given due weightage in accordance with their age and maturity on an equal basis with other children, and to be provided with disability and age-appropriate assistance to realize that right. Consultations such as these are supposed to be given a direction to our steps by interdisciplinary engagement and reinvigorate our commitment to the goal. Undeniably, it has to build on a desire to take transformative steps. One of the ways is that the Juvenile Justice Committee of each High Court could have a website for for children and their needs and for implementation of the acts. The website could be a part of the website of the State Legal Services Authority in the state language as well as in English language. The conveners of the State Legal Services Authority must strive to implement this suggestion. As emphasized by multiple speakers in the second and third technical sessions, this ITTET can manifest in organizations, budgeting for accessibility, friendly information dissemination, and accessibility audits being budgeted for and taken seriously. I hope that all the high courts will take immediate steps towards forming accessibility committees and help desks for disabled persons who come to the courts. A running concern throughout the extensive and instructive sessions was the invisibilizing effect of intersectional vulnerabilities, which may disproportionately destabilize the lives of children of a certain caste or socioeconomic strata or gender living with disabilities. The impetus is on us to endeavor to design positive commitments that countervail this intersectional detriment and elevate them towards achieving professional and personal fulfillment. Before I conclude this consultation, we should make a resolve to reaffirm our commitment for the protection of children, especially children with disabilities, inter alia, in the following ways. 1. The necessary policy and legal steps be taken by every state government to ensure accessibility and inclusion of children with disabilities by removing all the barriers that hinder realization of rights of children. 2. To develop and adopt a state action plan for protection of children with disabilities, which will be reviewed and monitored jointly by the states and juvenile justice committees of the high courts. 3. Informed by these state action plans and the national consultation, to adopt a national roadmap on advancing the protection of children with disabilities with actionable and time-bound committees. Also, all the schemes for children with disabilities must be displayed on the website of NALSA and websites of State Legal Services Authority. The data on children in juvenile justice system be streamlined on the basis of indicators that have been established by the Supreme Court by ensuring systematic data updation, their monitoring, and corrective measures be ensured. Mr. Rajesh Agarwal said that there is no correct estimation of children with disabilities in India. We all should know India is a vast country with many states. It is also known as a subcontinent. There must be, therefore, it is necessary that there must be diagnosis at the level of the Anganwadis where the children are up to 6 years. Similarly, the Right to Education Act for children with disabilities must be implemented not only in letter but also in spirit. I appeal to Mr. Anil Malik to ensure that disability pension is being extended to children with disabilities lifelong through state disability commissioners or other agencies. For the other programs which have to be implemented, I am sure the Government of India as well as the state governments could appeal for CSR funds for their different programs. Next, that our justice and child protection systems be more inclusive and accessible by every means. Efforts must be made to ensure that children with disabilities grow in a nurturing family environment. We will follow all approaches and processes to achieve this and more. The learned High Court judges must take a lead in seeing that the interpretation that they give to such kind of cases which come up before them would be a real eye-opener and a guidance for the states as well as the Government of India to ultimately implement them. Next, that the Handbook on Disabilities and the mission statement titled Invisible No More must be read by all concerned, disseminated and followed in our day-to-day lives as we engage with children with disabilities in our respective positions and capacities. I am sure the Supreme Court would ensure that the handbook is made available to all the courts in digital as well as in the hard copy. I also request Justice Maushmi Bhattacharya to share her presentation with the Juvenile Justice Committee, Supreme Court, so that we can in turn share it with all the directors of the state academies and national judicial academies as for onward transmission to judicial officers, and it would be a kind of a ready reckoner for the judicial officers to deal with various aspects of intersectionality. This will be also shared with the UNICEF for their consideration. The conclusion of this consultation gives a reinvigorated impetus to our commitment. The object of gathering at this consultation will be realized only when we all glean the spirit of deliberations and presentations hosted here and inculcate it in our daily lives and affairs and decision-making processes. Our tenacious resolve must be to allow children living with disabilities access to society that acknowledges their unique abilities and amplifies their voices with dignity and respect. On that hopeful note, I once again thank each one of you for your presence and for your participation. Thank you all again for your attention. Namaskar.
Thanks a lot, ma'am. Your valuable and enlightening insights have helped us gain a deeper and richer understanding of the issues that were discussed over the last 2 days. With this, we come to the end of this national consultation. May we all continue to be the change makers our world so desperately needs. On this note, we conclude. I request you all to kindly rise for the national anthem.
जनगण मन अधिनायक जय हे भारत भाग्य विधाता पंजाब सिंध गुजरात मराठा द्राविड उत्कल बंगा विंध्य हिमाचल यमुना गंगा उच्चल जलधि तरंगा तव शुभ नामे जागे तव शुभ आशीष मांगे गाहे तव जय गाथा जन गण मंगलदायक जय हे भारत भाग्य विधाता जय हे जय हे जय हे जय 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 हे
I request all of you to kindly join us for lunch, and also just a gentle reminder, anyone who wants to access the resource material may access